It had been a long day on the road. A flat tire, spotty GPS signal, and a relentless downpour had thrown Karen and her friends way off schedule. They'd planned to reach their cabin by nightfall, but now it was past midnight, and they were still miles away from their destination. When headlights illuminated a sign that read, "Nightfall Inn, last stop for 50 miles, they collectively sighed in relief. "Looks like we've got no choice," said Karen as she turned the car into the gravel parking lot. The Nightfall Inn looked like a relic from a different era. The neon sign flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows over the assortment of cars and bikes in the lot. "Is it just me, or do these cars look kinda old?" said Jack, eyeing a rusty pickup truck. Inside, the lobby smelled of musty carpets and old wood. A man behind the counter, presumably the owner, greeted them with a smile that seemed too wide for his face. "Ah, new guests. Welcome. I'm Bill. We've been expecting you." Karen felt a shiver run down her spine. "Expecting us? Ah, a figure of speech, dear. Late-night travelers often find their way here." Bill handed them their keys. "Room 113 for you, all the way down the hall." As they walked to their room, they passed other guests. A woman in a faded floral dress smiled oddly at them, and a man in a trench coat seemed to be muttering to himself. "Everyone here seems a little off," whispered Sarah. "Yeah, let's just get some sleep and get out of here ASAP," replied Karen. The room itself was an odd mixture of outdated and worn out. The floral wallpaper peeled off in places, and the TV was an old boxy thing with dials and rabbit ears. After a brief discussion, they decided that Karen and Sarah would share one bed, while Jack and Tom would share the other. As they settled in, they heard muffled conversations from the room next door. Laughter, then silence, and then a woman's voice singing a lullaby in a language they didn't understand. "Okay, that's creepy," said Tom. "Yeah, let's just try to get some sleep," Karen insisted. They were woken up a few hours later by a loud thud. The room was pitch black. "What was that?" whispered Sarah. "I don't know. Tom? Jack?" Karen fumbled for her phone to use as a flashlight. The light revealed empty beds. "Guys, this isn't funny." "No way they'd go anywhere without telling us," said Sarah, her voice shaky. Karen walked to the door and opened it. The hallway was empty, but she heard soft footsteps at the far end, vanishing around the corner. "Stay here," she told Sarah. "I'm gonna find them." Sarah nodded, her face pale. "Be careful." Karen cautiously moved down the hall. It seemed longer than she remembered, the walls almost closing in. She reached the lobby, which was empty except for Bill, who was polishing an antique clock behind the counter. "Excuse me, have you seen our friends?" Bill looked up, his smile wider than ever. "No, dear. Perhaps they stepped out for some fresh air." Karen returned to the room, her mind racing. Sarah was gone. "Sarah?" She felt a rising sense of panic. That's when she noticed that the wallpaper next to her bed had changed. Where a peony once bloomed, now there was an eye, lifelike and staring right at her. She ran back to the lobby. "Where is she? Where are my friends?" Bill sighed, putting down his cloth. "Some guests check in, but they don't check out. At least not in the way you'd think." Angry and terrified, Karen rushed towards him, but stopped when she saw the wall behind the counter. It was a mural that depicted the Nightfall Inn itself. And there, amongst the painted guests, were the faces of Tom, Jack, and Sarah, twisted in horror. "You will be joining them soon," Bill said calmly. The lights flickered, and Karen heard what sounded like footsteps approaching from behind her. She turned sharply, but saw no one. "Is someone there?" she whispered, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "Ah, perhaps your friends have come to greet you," said Bill, with a sinister grin. Dread filled Karen. She thought about Sarah's pale face, about Tom's nervous laugh, and Jack's skeptical comments. If she had only listened to her gut feeling and kept driving, maybe they wouldn't be trapped in this godforsaken place. Bill leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You can't escape, Karen. The inn chooses who it wants, and it has chosen you." As he spoke, the room began to spin. Karen felt herself being pulled towards the mural. She screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the chorus of the other trapped souls. And then, darkness. The next morning, the Nightfall Inn welcomed new guests, a weary family who had lost their way. As they checked in, their little girl looked at the mural and shivered. "Why do those people look so scared, Daddy?" Her father chuckled nervously. "It's just a painting, sweetheart, just a painting." Bill smiled, handing over their keys. "Room 113 for you, all the way down the hall."
Rachel punched in the coordinates for their weekend getaway. The cabin was supposed to be just a 4-hour drive away. It was an ideal escape for her and her friends, Sarah and Ben, who were cramped in the back seat of her old Subaru. "Ready for an adventure?" Rachel asked, her eyes twinkling. The car roared to life, and so did the GPS. "Proceed to the route." An hour into the journey, the GPS suddenly recalibrated. "Take the next exit," it announced in its neutral robotic voice. "That's strange. I don't remember a detour," Rachel muttered. "Maybe there's traffic ahead," Sarah suggested, not looking up from her phone. Rachel took the exit, leading them onto a dimly lit road surrounded by towering trees. A few minutes later, the GPS instructed, "Turn left into Evergreen Cemetery." The car lights fell on the rusty gates of a deserted cemetery. "Okay, that's creepy. Why would it tell us to go here?" Ben finally spoke up. "I'm recalibrating," Rachel insisted, fidgeting with the GPS, but it stubbornly redirected them back to Evergreen Cemetery. "Let's just keep going, it'll readjust," she said nervously. As they passed the cemetery, Sarah saw something in her peripheral vision. Shadowy figures behind the tombstones, staring at them. "Guys, I think I saw..." But before she could finish, the GPS interrupted. "Recalculating. Proceed to the new route." Their eyes were peeled to the GPS as it led them deeper into an unfamiliar territory. It was past midnight when they saw it, a decrepit cafe named Midnight Diner, its neon sign flickering erratically. "Turn right," the GPS commanded. "This can't be right," Ben said. "Do we go in?" Sarah asked, the tension palpable. "Let's just get it over with," Rachel sighed. They entered the cafe. It was empty, save for a lone waitress, who looked like she had seen better days. "What'll it be, hon?" she asked, her voice tinged with weariness. "Coffee," Rachel mumbled. The waitress returned with their drinks, but seemed to linger longer than necessary, studying their faces, especially Sarah's. "You remind me of someone," she finally said, her eyes narrowing. "Someone who disappeared around here a long time ago." "Disappeared?" Sarah choked on her coffee. "Just an old story," the waitress replied, retreating into the shadows. The GPS chimed in. "Recalculating, proceed to the new route." They drove in silence, uneasy about what they had experienced. Just when they thought the GPS had normalized, it instructed, "Turn right into Whispering Pines." Rachel obeyed, steering the car onto a narrow dirt road that led into a dense forest. The trees seemed to close in on them as they moved further in. "Should we turn back?" Ben suggested, panic edging into his voice. "Too late now," Rachel said, gripping the steering wheel. "We're already here." That's when they heard it. The whispering. Soft voices rustled through the trees, incomprehensible, but unmistakably human, or at least once human. "I can't do this," Sarah whimpered. "We need to leave." "Recalculating. Proceed to the new route," the GPS declared, seemingly satisfied with their torment. They followed the GPS's instructions, and it led them to a decrepit sign that read, "Welcome to Elmdale." They had arrived at an abandoned town, shrouded in darkness and despair. Why would it lead us here? Rachel muttered, but a feeling of dread told her that their journey was not arbitrary. The GPS instructed them to stop in front of a dilapidated church. It was eerily quiet, but what caught their eye was a mural on the church wall, depicting a scene that looked remarkably like their journey: the cemetery, the cafe, and the forest. "That's us," Sarah whispered, pointing to 3 figures in the mural, standing where they stood now, but with shadowy figures closing in around them. "Recalculating. End of the route," the GPS announced. The screen flickered and went black, its mission accomplished. It wasn't until then that they realized they were not alone. From the dark recesses of the abandoned buildings, figures began to emerge, shadowy entities with hollow eyes, an eerie manifestation of the mural. "We need to leave now," Ben screamed. Rachel turned the key, but the car wouldn't start. They were trapped. "Look," Sarah cried, pointing at the church altar, visible through the open doors. On it lay a GPS identical to theirs. One of the shadowy figures picked it up and spoke, his voice distorted but recognizable. It was the same voice as their GPS. "New route calculated. Welcome to Elmdale," it said, smiling grotesquely as it closed in on them. The figures swarmed the car, drowning out their screams and dragging them into the darkness. The next day, the Subaru was found at the exact coordinates Rachel had punched in, right outside their dream weekend cabin. It was empty, but the GPS was still there, recalibrating for its next journey.
Jennifer gripped the steering wheel tighter, eyes locked on the deserted road, stretching endlessly before her. Sean, her husband, fumbled with the radio, trying to find any station that wasn't static. "I swear we've passed that same billboard 3 times now," Jennifer said, glancing in the rearview mirror at their 2 kids, Emily and Jake, engrossed in a game on their iPad. Sean chuckled. "Maybe they just have multiple billboards. Same ad and all." Jennifer frowned. 3 billboards, advertising Dan's Diner, the best pie in the state, in the middle of nowhere? As if on cue, they passed by the billboard again. "Okay, that is weird," Sean admitted. "Let's try turning around." Jennifer made a U-turn. They drove for another half hour, only to pass the same billboard. "Mom, I need to pee." Jake finally looked up from his game. I don't know when we'll see a rest stop, buddy," Jennifer said, her voice tinged with worry. Just then, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. A car was approaching at high speed. "Finally, another car!" Jennifer sighed in relief. The car pulled alongside them, and they glanced over. The other car had only one occupant, a woman with pale skin and dark eyes, her face expressionless. She stared at them for a moment that felt like an eternity, and then her car sped away into the darkness. "Okay, that was creepy," Sean said, breaking the silence. They drove for another few minutes, only to find the woman from the car now standing by the road, her thumb out for a hitchhike. "No way we're picking her up," Sean declared. They sped past her, feeling her eyes on them as they went. Moments later, the same billboard welcomed them again. Jennifer's eyes widened as a dense fog rolled in, enveloping the road ahead. "Where did this fog come from? I can't see a thing," Jennifer said, slowing down. Outlines of figures appeared in the fog, walking aimlessly on the road. "Are those people?" Sean squinted, trying to get a better look. One figure lunged at the car, its face distorted, mouth unnaturally wide open in a scream. Jennifer swerved, narrowly avoiding it. "What the hell was that?" she shrieked. Just then, the fog lifted as suddenly as it had appeared. The road was clear, and up ahead, the same billboard greeted them. A haunting melody began playing from the radio, filling the car. Sean frantically tried to turn it off, but the radio controls were unresponsive. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" Emily cried from the back seat, covering her ears. The song grew louder, a chorus of ghostly voices joining in. Then, as suddenly as it had started, the music stopped. "Thank God that's over," Jennifer sighed, her hands shaking. There it was again, the same billboard. This time, the billboard was different. Instead of advertising Dan's Diner, it now read, "Turn back now." Jennifer and Sean exchanged a terrified look. Okay, this is too much, Sean said. Let's turn around. But turning around only led them to the same message, now even more ominous. You can't escape. Jennifer felt a sense of despair wash over her. What do we do now? Sean took a deep breath. I don't know, but we need to break this cycle. As they pondered their next move, Emily piped up from the back seat. Mum, look. In her hand was a locket, one Jennifer had never seen before. I found it on the floor, Emily said. Jennifer took the locket and opened it. Inside was a picture of the ghostly hitchhiker. On the other side, an inscription, Break the Loop. Understanding washed over Jennifer. We have to go back for her. They made a U-turn, and soon enough, they found the hitchhiker standing there, waiting. Jennifer slowed down and opened the door. The woman got in without a word. As they drove past the billboard, it read, Thank you. The road ahead twisted and turned, and soon they were on a familiar highway, the loop finally broken. The hitchhiker had disappeared, but the locket remained, a chilling reminder of their endless loop.